Good evening, everyone. My name is Mazes, okay? I welcome you all to this evening conversation with Dr. Katch Ononuju, the Labour Party chieftain, and also a special advisor to Mr. P2B on public affairs. This evening, in line with our series, The State of the Nation, I will be having a one-on-one conversation with Dr. Katch Ononuju. Katch Ononuju is joining me live from Abuja. Doctor, good evening and welcome to NjenjeMediaTV.
Mazizuke, I thank you very much for having me.
So let's quickly thank you for joining me, Katch. Obviously, we actually scheduled this meeting yesterday, so maybe we'll start there. And yesterday, we had these, the town hall meeting organized by Arise TV, and you were there because I also saw you there in some of the clips that we've seen. Now, what's your impression as a means of starting? What is your impression of what transpired in the nation's capital territory where Arise TV had that town hall meeting yesterday?
Well, it was a town hall meeting. We were invited, and other people were also invited. We kept to our promise to attend. When we got to the venue, we met other people. We met Mr. Kwankwaso of the New Nigerian People's Party. We also met Mr. Kola Abiola of the People's Redemption Party, the PRP. But then other two parties, Mr.
Dr. Katch there, I think your connection is frozen. Dr. Katch, I think your connection is frozen. Maybe we have to get him back again. Dr. Katch, let's get you out and see if you can come back, because I would want you to speak to one issue that obviously, which is the video released today by Dino Melaye. So I would want to see if we can get you back. Dr. Katch, quickly. The moment you come back, we will bring you back. So everyone joining us, that was Dr. Katch Ononuju, who is the Labour Party special advisor to incoming president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Mr. P2B. Dr. Katch Ononuju is joining me from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. So I think we have a connectivity issue. Dr. Katch would join me back shortly, so we can continue with the conversation. I do understand that the network is slightly problematic, but nonetheless, he will be joining me shortly. But before he does, let's listen to this okay. Dr. Katch is back now.
Yes, I am back.
Yes.
Sorry, Mazi. Okay. As I was explaining earlier, we got to the venue and we found out that the PDP's candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, was not at the venue. We also found out that the candidate of the ruling party was also not at the venue. And that was why a lot of the people in the crowd stood up and said they would not accept it. That them as Nigerians were seeking to see the presidential candidates who are seeking their votes. And then you saw that fracas. But some way, somehow, Mr. P2B appealed to everybody to please be calm, that he understood what the demands were. The demands were simple, that presidential candidates should attend a presidential town hall meeting. They do not want senatorial candidates, governorship candidates, or vice presidential candidates. So after more than 30 minutes of that, it was brought under the control, and then the anchors continued from there. So I would say from that, today, the Labour Party had a press conference in which it told the country, from now on, any occasion where we are invited and we do not see the presidential candidates, that its candidate would not sit down to speak to people who are beneath him in the rank of the electoral contest. Only presidential candidates will be allowed. It is understood that Mr. Tinubu has been avoiding live shows because he has acute and advanced dementia. His hands shake, and he has been having issues with withholding urine. And of course, we have seen also problems with his coherence in speech, which add up to say that he has advanced dementia. And that of Mr. Atiku Abubakar, his people said that he went to Morocco and did not arrive in Nigeria on time to make it to the town hall meeting. So we understood this, but we insist, if these challenges will continue to cause those candidates not to be available, we would rather wait for when they are available to speak to them than speak to the vice presidential or governorship candidates. So it was agreed, because after the show yesterday, Mr. Ndoko Baibana specifically told me, because he knew I represented my people when the DG of the campaign had left, Dr. Dino Melaye, and he said to me that our protests were noted, and he promised that it will not occur again. So I think we have taken that, and we believe we have made our case, and of course the public also agree. A presidential town hall meeting should be for Nigerians to see those who are running to be president, not those who are running to be vice president. And we said we will hold our case and watch to see how organizers across country respect this particular demand from the Nigerian voting population, that they want to see the presidential candidates who seek their votes.
Thank you very much. So, but what during that protest, so to say, because we saw a couple of people protesting at that event, but there appears to be at a point where the principal, Mr. Peter Obi, appealed for calm. Now, we also saw another scenario. I believe you were sitting at Dino Melaye's back. There appeared to be a scenario where Mr. Peter Obi told Dino Melaye to stop saying something that obviously appeared to be distracting him. And the moment that happened, this morning we saw Dino Melaye release a video, which I'm going to show you, and I will be wanting your reaction to this video.
I am doing this video just to clarify the outburst by Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of Labour Party yesterday. It was not provoked. I was sitting far opposite the top seat where they were sitting. I didn't mention his name. And I was really surprised to see that type of outburst from a presidential candidate. Is that the type of president he's going to make? Just taking on people and showing unpresidential characteristics? The way he acted yesterday was very, very, he rather called me out because there was no way I didn't do anything. I didn't call his name. I mean, where I was sitting, there's nothing I would have said that Obi would have heard. And there was nothing. I didn't do anything. So that outburst is unwarranted, very unpresidential, unacceptable of a leader. A leader must be matured. One who wants to govern this country must be accommodating, must have a lot of patience, must have perseverance. These are basic characteristics of leadership anywhere in the world. You want to be president of Nigeria and you are reacting in such a manner in public, this one will slap ADC for office as president. So I want to clear the air that there was nothing, I didn't do anything to him. He was so provoked and so carried away by the performance of Governor Okowa that he was saying that somebody outside is from ANPP. Does that make any sense? Is there any party like ANPP in Nigeria today?
Okay, now sitting down there, obviously you know Dino Melaye very well, but sitting down there, understanding what transpired yesterday, what would be your reaction?
Yes, Mr. Peter Obi was reacting to the heckling by Mr. Dino Melaye when some members of the PRP made some protestations, and Dino Melaye was saying, these are Labour Party people, Labour Party, obedience. So Mr. Peter Obi interjected to say, why are you always referring to Labour and obedience? The man who made the remark, the people made the remark are of the PRP. They actually came with Mr. Kola Abiola. And also to tell you, the real fracas you saw at the beginning were as a reaction to the words of Dino Melaye. Dino Melaye said, when we asked, where is Mr. Atiku? He said, Atiku cannot come here. Atiku is too big. Atiku will only come here if Tinubu comes here. This is not his class. So you see, Dino Melaye in Nigeria is seen as a comedian. And such behavior that he puts up would not be tolerated by a lot of people. So I think when the heckling and his sustained pronouncement of Labour Party people, obedience, really got to Mr. Peter Obi, who noticed that the people Dino Melaye were calling obedience were actually supporters of the PRP candidates. They were wearing PRP shirts and caps. So Mr. Peter Obi now said, why is Dino Melaye always calling my name? The people who are saying this thing are of the PRP. They came with Mr. Kola Abiola. Well, and that was what kept Dino in check. Dino Melaye, as we know, is one of the boyfriends of Mr. Atiku Abubakar. And we know his behavior is not a very good one to write home about. And I think Mr. Peter Obi did very well to call him to order. We don't think that his behavior should be acceptable. The way he overcarries himself needs to be condemned. And I do believe Mr. Peter Obi was in the right to have said what he said, because the minute Mr. Peter Obi called out that Dino Melaye sustained heckling of Peter Obi, calling obedience, calling everybody that says anything, Peter Obi's people, it's in order. Because after Peter Obi reprimanded him, Dino Melaye now kept quiet and did not make any more noise. I believe other candidates should also stop Dino Melaye from such unacceptable behavior.
Well, thank you very much for that clarification. Now, there was a tweet today, because you said something now that Dino, you referred to Dino as Atiku's boyfriend. And today, the former Minister of Aviation, in the person of Femi Fani Kayode, made same allusion. Are both of you driving to something?
No, no, no. We're just being descriptive of the nature of the relationship they have. As far as I do not have any qualms about relationships, anybody has every right to choose who he wants to be his friend. The nation knows, to have a relationship with Mr. Atiku Abubakar. So if you hear several people mention it, it is because that's a fact. Dino Melaye, it's not fit for the roles that he seems to be playing in public. He is a clown, he's a comedian, and he doesn't have it. And even when he tried to talk to me yesterday, I reminded him that he's talking to me, that he shouldn't forget I am Katch Ononuju. I am not his type. That those who defeated and humiliated him could not do anything with me. I'm a public speaker. He also has been in the public space, but we do not belong to the same class. Dino Melaye was humiliated by those who couldn't do a thing with me. Dino does not know his ways when it comes to public speaking. He is more of a comedian than a public speaker. And I believe he has every right to keep the relationship the way he wants. So if you hear several Nigerians mentioning him for who he is, that's because that's who he is. He does not add value to the PDP's stable of speakers. He comes across as a clown. And we believe he's put there simply because of the nature of the relationship he has with Mr. Atiku Abubakar.
If we stay within the realm of PDP, you recently left the PDP. And in one of your interview, or rather in the recent interview you had with Channels Television, you made an allusion that PDP is like a table with 4 legs. And for now, that those legs are not there. Would you mind making that clarification for this platform?
Oh, well, that's when I was asked my reason for living. I tried to posit that I am not the reason for my living. That I watched the party that I had been a member of for 22 years get dismembered by the internal implosions and the squabblings. And that was why I said the PDP was a table on which Nigeria organized its transition from dictatorship onto democracy. And right now, the 4 legs that were on that table are not currently with that table. As Mr. Kwankwaso took one of the legs away, Mr. Peter will be left with one of the legs, and Governor Wike and his people took another leg off. So if in 4-legged table, 3 legs have been removed, only 1 leg remains. And that leg, I said in the note, is being referred to as Dangurugu. And everywhere I pass, everywhere I go, I see people in the notes refer to me as Megurugu. And when I turn back, he said, hey, when the party I see the Gurugu, and I stop and I ask myself, why would they refer to the PDP as a Gurugu? A Gurugu is a man that is challenged, physically challenged, and what the Igbos will call Onyangoro. And it is true. It is the removal of those legs that has now turned the PDP into the Gurugu. So it is the Dangurugu. And because of the anger I saw that my once well-admired party has now, because of its internal implosion caused by people like Dino Melaye and his likes who returned from the APC and then sought to undermine the party. And the party imploded into smithereens. I could not stay to nurse a Gurugu. I could not stay to nurse a 1-legged man. And of course, elections are like a race. I do not see how a 1-legged man could actually win in a 100 meters race. And that's why most of us left. I didn't just leave on time. It was very painful for me to leave. But when I saw that a lot of people who were leaving were now reassembling themselves in the Labour Party and were following the Obasanjo doctrine, which said Obasanjo worked against Goodluck Jonathan as a strategy to show the North inclusion, and that was what brought Buhari in intentions towards aiding the Nigerian project. That Nigerian project is a project premised on inclusion, because nobody can win election by voting for his own people. You need the other people's buy-in into it. And when I now saw that my party, the PDP, which had as part of its constitution the need to include every part of this country, and that was why we embraced zoning. So when people like Dino Melaye and his ilk came in, they now used money to undermine the people at the head of the party. The party went on to now undermine zoning without changing its constitution, not even calling for a special convention at which the constitutional part that had to deal with zoning will be set aside. No, they simply use money to undermine everything, use money to buy delegates. That's why everybody's leaving. As I speak to you, more governors are leaving. Yesterday, Governor Bala Mohammed said he's leaving the party and joining the group of 5 other governors. That's now 6 governors. And I know very well all this is being done under the guidance of our foundational presidential candidate, President Olusegun Obasanjo, who today is telling everybody he's not doing his work because of party. He's doing his work because of the need to protect the Nigerian project. He's joined in that work by General Danjuma, General Babangida, General Abdul Salami. They said that Nigerian project, which they fought as soldiers during the Civil War to keep, is premised on an inclusion. Neither they have seen that some boogeyman has come to seize and undermine the project through the political process, through the injection of money to buy delegates, that they want to come back and repair Nigeria for the sake of Nigeria. And they spoke to governors, and that's why when the governors went to London and came back to Nigeria, they said they are no more interested in looking at the issues about party, that they are now working and looking holistically at Nigerian project. So people like me felt, I also believe in Nigeria. If there is a way we can stop the agitation by the youth in the South, if there's a way we can kill President Buhari's institutionalization and embrace of nepotism as policy, it is for us to find ways to sustain the Nigerian project. If there is a way I can tell the young people, separatism is not the best for Nigeria, it is to show them that I am with a group that is working towards embracing the aspirations of all Nigerians. And you can see people now doing Muslim projects. You can see people doing a Northern project in a very diverse society where you have over 300 different ethnicities. I believed I should follow the Obasanjo doctrine, follow the governors, follow the other patriots who believe that we should save Nigeria by making sure that we sustain our work towards nationhood in a way that embraces equity, fairness, and justice, in an inclusive enterprise that embraces the aspirations of all Nigerians. That's why I walked away from the PDP and I'm now a member of the Labour Party. Labour is a new playground that we want to use to sustain the Nigerian project.
That is very, thank you very much for taking us down the memory lane. Now, you've mentioned something that I want to piggyback on. One is the PDP constitution, that has zoning in, contained in it. The other is the role of some people within that PDP arrangement. Story had it that before the primaries, that there was this sort of subtle agreement that if everyone agreed within the PDP to cede power to the Southeast, that Atiku wouldn't have contested. Now, I do not know, as an insider in PDP as of that time, how true is that narrative? And what role do you think had do you think the Southeast probably would have gotten it had Wike not come in at the last minute to say that he's contesting for that seat?
Well, it is wrong to particularize those issues to Mr. Atiku. People who left the PDP as MPDP and formed a coalition with other Nigerians and brought about the Buhari presence. They say that they were deceived by President Buhari, that President Buhari promised that he would do a single term and then let them run. But then, when they now said Buhari let them down, that he did not keep to the terms on which they agreed before they formed the coalition, they came back to the PDP and started angling for the presidency. All of them without exception. Atiku, led by Atiku, Mr. Tambuwal, Dr. Bukola Saraki, and all of them who were involved, they were going to run for the presidency. So when that came about, it did not start in a day. It started from the very day they came back to the PDP. And they said they will want to take back the presidency. They continue to spread rumor, propaganda, and they kind of gained some kind of mind share within the PDP. And I think that was why some governors advised Governor Wike that they believe the chairman of the party who came from his state, to which he was instrumental in bringing about, Mr. Secondus, had already had a pact with the Northerners that the Northerners would get the presidency, that if the South should get presidency, it should set purpose towards working with other people to relinquish the chairmanship currently held by Mr. Secondus. And I believe that was the reason upon which he now got consensus and Mr. Secondus was removed.
Mm-hmm.
After removal of Mr. Secondus, other things took shape. The Northerners did not stop. Mr. Wike went about to get the governors to zone the chairmanship to the north. And he sought friends in the north. And that was how he got Governor Autumn to bring somebody whom Governor Autumn say he trusts. And that was Chairman Ayu. Ayu was brought. As I speak to you today, Ayu is still not a member of the PDP. A lot of these people talking are really not members. They were brought in as mercenaries for particular jobs. And they came to do those jobs. But along the line, those members of the Northern Caucus got Mr. Ayu compromised. Mr. Ayu, instead of working to make sure as his chairman that the Southerners will get the presidency, he got compromised. He started selling phones even before the PDP could decide on the zoning about the presidency. One thing led to the other, and because those members had bought forms, it was very difficult to tell those who had bought forms to drop the forms. And then you had those stories about arguments within the party. And when it came to the issue of Governor Wike and other leaders were saying, who are the people running? And I'll be very honest with you. Most of our people from the Southeast were not really there to invest in the presidency when they were not sure that there was a vacuum, there was a space for them. Because the Northern members dominated the mind share of the party, and then Governor Wike threw his hat in the ring. After what happened, Mr. Payasanyim declared, after Mr. Hukma Ohabunwa had declared, and we still saw that, and we continue to pray for more people from the Southeast to declare. And that was where, through some instrumentations, we got Mr. Peter Obi to also declare, which got Vice President Atiku very angry, because in his plots, he said that 2021, Mr. Dokwesi had gone round to tell him that there was a consensus across the country that he should run. This is even before the consensus had been done. So he claiming that Mr. Dokwesi told him he can run. He continued to press on for run. So because he had that clear view, Mr. Wike also threw his own heart into the ring. At that time, we now saw the Southern governors trying to instrument some public declarations that they will want the governorship to come, the presidency to come to the South. As they were doing that, Elijah Atiku kept pressing on with other Northerners. We now saw a clear design by the North not to allow the Southerners access to the presidency. It was supposed to be a Northerner in the APC, a Northerner in the PDP. When we saw that the Northerners were not going to allow us, that was why even those who were suggesting a plan B should be for somebody from the Southeast to be available for the vice presidency. But when we saw that Governor Patrick Okowa was funding covertly the activities of Vice President Atiku Abubakar, we sat down and looked at who it is that we could actually push, and that turned to Mr. Peter Obi. We now told him that since the intelligence is real, that Mr. Okowa was funding Vice President Atiku's presidential bid, that there was nothing like Plan B for somebody from the Southeast being considered for the presidency. And we blackmailed Mr. Peter Obi to throw his hat into the ring, but not with the PDP. And that was how the idea of him going to Labour Party came about. I must confess, I have been working with Mr. Peter Obi for the past 3 years. I also will confess, I was part of those who insisted he must run. He agreed, and we found a neutral platform in the Labour Party. A lot of Igbo leaders from across the country impressed it upon him to run, because we saw that in 2019, Mr. Peter Obi spent a lot of his own money, in billions, close to 11 billion, supporting the PDP in both the presidential run and also in the governorship, and all the things that demanded his input across the country. And that was our strategy. If somebody from the Southeast could spend such money in politics, which most business people from Southeast would not dare do, then he could equally also spend such money to represent the interests of the Southerners in the presidency. And because of we saw the conspiracy by the Northerners in the PDP, we thought it made sense for him to take a neutral platform. He did take that neutral platform, and luckily for us, the youths that were suppressed 2 years ago when they were protesting injustices in the criminal justice system and the security apparatus of the country, the suppression of the youth by the government did not get the youth out. The youth just laid low. And as they saw Mr. Peter Obi, they looked at all the candidates available, they embraced him. And that's, as they say, the rest is history. Today, Mr. Peter Obi has the greatest followership of the normal citizens of Nigeria than any other presidential candidate.
That's correct.
And other Nigerians who are tired of the fraud now said, with the signing of the electoral bill, the amendment of the Electoral Act into being a bill, it is possible that we can right now begin to experience the real democracy, because the Electoral Bill amendment did three critical things. It canceled the use of the incident form, which is a mechanism by which you could claim the failure of electronic data, and then you start to write. And that's how most people in the north will, if they see 200 persons, they will write a data that they saw 280,000 people. Such things were normally accepted by the electoral umpire. Another thing was the Electoral Act Amendment insisted that before somebody could vote, that person must have been authenticated by a biometric authentication process. The biometric app.
Okay, Dr. Katch, I believe, if you can still hear me, I believe you're...
Most importantly, the new Electoral Act Council.
That's a very interesting conversation, people. If you're joining us for the first time, this is NjenjeMediaTV. Please do subscribe and like this stream. While I'm waiting for Dr. Katch to come back, his obviously connection has, Nigeria has happened to his connection. So I would get Dr. Katch out of the studio and he will be rejoining us very briefly. Now, Dr. Katch has taken us down the memory lane. If you are watching and you do have specific questions for Dr. Katch when he comes back, regarding the things he has said, the assertions he has so far made, you can also put that in the comments section. Now, as a matter of recap, Dr. Katch has spoken on why he left the PDP, and he described the PDP today as that disabled party. In his words, that the PDP is nothing but a dangrugu. I think that's an Hausa language that describes someone with disability, some to say. So in his words, that the PDP is now disabled. And he went on to talk, give historical context as an insider, how Peter Obi moved from the Labour Party to the, from the PDP to the Labour Party, and also how some of these things that has transpired, how it happened up to date. Now, I think when Dr. He did mention, okay, Dr. Katch is back.
Yes, I'm back.
Yes.
As I was saying, the Electoral Act Amendment has three legs. The first is the cancellation of the use of incident form. The second is insistence on biometric authentication of the voter before the vote is cast. And the third is the cancellation of the use of a collection center. Collection centers are the normal areas where the votes are rigged. Zeros are added. System rate transmission of results from the voting booth straight to the server of the electoral umpire, which is INEC. And because of those new laws, we now have a new set of rules that has increased the confidence of the voters in the electoral system. That is the reason for the newfound optimism by the youth, and also a reason why you've seen a resurgence of intentions of most of the Igbos who now think that the elections will be better and that their votes will count. Because if you understand the reasons for the empathy, it's because historically the Igbo is an autonomous entity, a sovereign entity who really does not believe that his life could be bettered by the impact from someone else. His total belief in his capability is the reason why he's been described as a sovereign entity. But because of the new confidence in the electoral system brought about by the new amendment to the Electoral Act, there has been a surge in registration by the young people who have now decided to take their lives, take back their country. And that's why you've noticed take back your country has become the new mantra for Mr. Peter Obi's campaigns. Today, the youth and their new movement is owned by the streets. It's an organic movement owned by Nigerian youth. Of that, except the one that they have employed to become a face of their masquerade. And that face of the youth masquerade is Mr. Peter Obi. And based on that, Mr. Peter Obi has now been transformed to a new electoral phenomenon. And that's why you see the other legacy party people, or they don't even know how to campaign on the records that they seek to achieve. No, all they do every day, Peter Obi, Peter Obi, Peter Obi. And of course, the reason why when we opened this discussion, we're discussing about Mr. Dino Melaye's fixation on Peter Obi. Peter Obi has become the new sensation. Everybody sees Mr. Peter Obi as a new disruptor. Peter Obi is like the Apple iPhone, the new disruptor in Nigeria's electoral market. And I believe this would not stop in February. I believe the Peter Obi juggernaut will continue well after the elections, no matter how it goes. So
True.
we are very...
The connection is somewhat frozen again. Let's wait for a couple of seconds and see if Dr. Katch Ononuju will be back properly. But for some reason, it appears that it's still frozen. Dr. Katch, let's see if your connection is going to get anywhere better. But like I was saying before, he came back. We may have to. Yes, he's gone out again. So let's quickly wait and see if Dr. Katch can join us within the next couple of minutes. And some of you and many of you who are watching us, If you do have your question, please, by all means, put your question in the comment section. Then your question will be taken. Now, there is a question from Adibo. He says that he has a question. How do they intend to cover 178,845, that is 178,000 polling units, with at least 3 obedient security members to help secure the votes? A lot is being done. You're talking about 3. The plan is actually to increase it to 10, or minimum of 8 to 10. So that is something I believe when Dr. Katch comes back, he can address as well. I hope that Dr. Katch will come back quickly. Then we can start wrapping it up. But before we do, or before he comes back, let's have a listen. Okay, Dr. Katch is back once more. So now you're back again. Thank you very much.
I'm back, Matthew. Okay, I do not know why.
Yes, I think
no,
they maybe some people don't like what you're saying, but the truth has to be said, isn't it? So, Dr. Katch,
we'll continue to speak the truth.
Exactly, Dr. Katch. Let me, if you may, bring us into this. You talked about that when Atiku was trying to see how he would dissuade the Southeast in contesting for the 2023 election under PDP. You alluded to the fact that some of the vice presidential candidates were, from the Southeast were considered. Could you let us know, or if you do know, who were those that were considered as vice presidential candidates by Atiku before he settled for Okowa?
Well, I can tell you the story from Atiku had always been that he would run, and just like the other Northerners who insisted they must run, they did not think about other people, and that's the game. But then when finally Atiku did a march, his consideration for vice presidency, but from the Southeast wasn't that. The 3 people who were in that list were Mr. Wike, Governor Udomomani.
There is something definitely wrong with this connection today, honestly. People, we're very sorry about that. But while we are waiting for him to come back, let's have a listen to this.
There's a deep revelation I have about Nigerian economy. I will never reveal it until the next president of Nigeria. That's if it's the one I want. I'll reveal to him. But if you make, it's understand what we're talking about. Simple under what? Do you know Nigerians know their problem yet lack what? Understand? We all know the problem of Nigeria, including you. But you lack what? How can you look at Nigeria now, the way it's soft, the way the thing is going? As of today, dollar is...
Okay, now that you're back, you were alluding to the fact that Wike, Udom, and Ifeanyi Okowa were those that considered this, but these 3 were from the South. But I thought there was this, insinuation of considering people from the Southeast at that moment.
What I tell you is the truth. After the emergence of Mr. Atiku, the party only wrote 3 names for consideration as vice president, and they were Mr. Udom Emmanuel, Governor Wike, and Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, all from the South. Nobody from the Southeast was considered. I, as a member of the Ohanaeze Elders Council, I was at the meeting where Mr. Jim Mobudu led some people to insist that the Ohanese should adopt the PDP ticket. I remember I stood up to tell him, no, you come here with Ekweremadu, Nedumoko, Achukwu Denwa, Ben Obi, and insisting that we should adopt PDP, that we will not do that. One, you've not been coming to our meetings. Two, we, Ohanese, have been working with the South and Middle Belt Forum, and we have seen that in the presidency, there are 3 major candidates right now, and amongst them, our son, Peter Obi, seems to be the one that has the strongest momentum. Why should we not abandon him to go elsewhere? A lot of elders stood up to speak in the same vein to reprimand Governor Jim Nwobodo for his anti-Igbo positions, and his positions and his notions were defeated right there at that meeting. I was a member of that meeting, and later on, we had another meeting where we said that since the South and Middle Belt Forum have chosen Mr. Peter Obi, we should stick to that. And that's where we are today. So it's not just the South and Middle Belt Forum. You also have other people concerned Nigerians from across the country who were very concerned about the restlessness of the youth in the South, specifically in the Southeast and the Southwest. And we believe the way to quench that restlessness was to allow a semblance of inclusion. And that is to work to bring somebody from the South to be present. And that's why we've stuck with Mr. Peter Obi.
Okay. Now, before we leave the PDP, I want to ask you this frank question. You said you've been in the PDP in the last 22 years. Do you, in your considered opinion, think that the PDP in the last 22 years has been fair to the Southeast?
No. We had joined the PDP. The Southeast has followed the PDP with the hope that it is a national party. But of recent, the PDP has now been seized by the agendaists. And when we saw that clear agenda, that's the reason why a lot of us have now decided to leave it and find a platform where the aspirations of the diverse populations of Nigerians will be protected in. The new PDP, the PDP of today is dead in comparison to the past PDP. Whoever is in the PDP now must be somebody who is stranded and cannot think for himself. We run a representative democracy, and we believe a national party should aspire to embrace the aspiration of the diverse, heterogeneous population of Nigeria. If any party does not operate in a way to carry everybody, then that's wrong. The PDP of today would not condemn ethnic cleansings as being operated by the Buhari, would not condemn the wholesale stealing of the crude oil as Buhari seems to be doing. As I speak to you today, the NNPC has not remitted a cent to the Federation account because of the state capture by Buhari and his cabal. And we believe a party that cannot raise its voice, because if you look at the town hall meeting yesterday, I spoke to Soch, and even Buhari's attempt to contest the democracy, which has been condemned by our international partners, who issued alerts when they saw the intention of the Buhari administration to allow the militia men, who are also known as terrorists, and mentioned in some quarters as bandits. The strategy was for those militias to be used to implode Abuja, to seize Abuja, and then in its place, due to that, the army will come in, arrest the entire situation, and a state of emergency will be declared. When our international partners saw that, first was an alarm raised by General Danjuma. 4 days after General Danjuma raised that alarm, the British and American consulates raised also their alert, followed by the Australians, the Germans, the Bulgarians, the Indians, and others. If the alarms were not raised properly, Nigeria would have invited the embassies and reprimanded the ambassadors. But no, Buhari was summoned to London. He called it, what did he call it again? He called it a
medical trip.
But of course,
medical
we know
checkup.
what it is. He had just returned from an essential trip to Korea in a place at a conference where he was only president. The other people inside that room were technologists from biotech companies. And we knew the trip was simply a strategy for him to allow the implosion to occur, which our international partners saw, condemned it, raised alarms, raised alerts, and those alerts were what saved our democracy.
Now, as a layman, how would that benefit him in any way if something like that happens?
Well, I believe that falls in tandem with the confessions given by the bandits, terrorists, to Mr. Obed Melapia, who died after giving the country such information. So we believe the only reason why President Buhari has allowed those terrorists to continue to exist, despite the confessions by Governor El-Rufai that their positions are known, their camps are known, communications are sustained with them, yet the president has forced the army and security services to stay hands. They could have been taken out, but because of what they call the body language of President Buhari, the terrorists have continued to stay. And as you have seen, they kill soldiers, kidnap soldiers, shoot down aircraft in Zamfara, bomb trains between the Abuja-Kaduna rail line, and nothing happens. So you will ask yourself, what is there to be gained by the country if the commander-in-chief continues to allow such people to stay? What is the reason for the release of terrorists from the Kirikiri prisons, from Kuje prisons? So you should ask yourself, what is to be gained from the release and the sustained use of the terrorists? What is it that the nation embassies saw for them to raise such alarms? If the alarms were false, the ambassadors would have been summoned and reprimanded. But no, the ambassadors were not summoned. Instead, Buhari traveled to London, where he was summoned to be warned off about the dangers of him allowing such to happen. I will tell you another thing. Lagos State government systematically outlawed those bike squads because it was discovered that the horde of bike squads was the only logistics that they used to attack wherever they attack. Why has President Buhari refused to outlaw these bike squads? If the Lagos State government could outlaw them as a strategy to save Lagos, why did Buhari refuse to outlaw the bike holds and squads? So you can see that the countries that raised those alarms were very, very correct in raising the alarms. And they didn't hide it. They were very specific. That Abuja will fall. They gave hours in Kuchi to fall. If they were not correct, Buhari should have called them to reprimand them. No, he did not. He traveled to London. Ask yourself. And that was why yesterday, during my questioning time at the town hall meeting, I asked, why were the parties silent? Why was it only Mr. Peter Obi that has raised his voice against the state capture and the loading of our crude by people known to the NNPC, when the Navy confessed that they get phone calls from NNPC telling them to allow the vessels to load crude, that paperwork will be forwarded to them, but no paperwork is forwarded to them. So why this seeming quietness by the PDP, which was seen to be opposition party, are these optics that suggest state capture by the cabals that surround Buhari's administration?
So that could be seen as a collusion, in the words of retired General T.Y. Danjuma. Now
That is true. That is true.
mentioning T.Y. Danjuma, you made an allusion before that in this project to see Peter Obi delivered as the next president of Nigeria, that IBB, T.Y. Danjuma, and the Chief Olusegun Obasanjo are in the works with that. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, and these are men our mutual good friend Dele Momodu will still call the owners of Nigeria. Some Nigerians will then ask, if these men are considered to be those that have destroyed Nigeria, and now they are coming back to deliver a candidate, question then will be, is it that they are trying to pay back for the sins they've committed before, or is it an atonement in this endeavor that they have decided to embark on?
Okay, everybody could draw their own reasons when elders like that, who believe that they fought the Civil War to keep Nigeria one as an inclusive enterprise, but they have now seen a president whom all of them supported to come to power, suddenly wanting now to turn Nigeria into an estate for his own cabal. You also need to understand that the people who are trying to perform this state capture are really not plenty. So you will tell yourself, if these men had been these very strong players in the history of the country, why are they now suddenly embarking on this mission to protect the Nigerian project? Everybody can draw their own conclusions. My own conclusion is similar to what a gentleman told me in Lagos on Thursday, after I saw President Obasanjo upon his arrival from his trip to South Africa after his visit to Ethiopia, where he went to work as the African Union envoy for peace. He achieved peace. I went to Lagos and I waited upon him. As he arrived from the aircraft, I met with him at the executive lounge. I felt honored to be considered as worthy of being employed to work alongside these revered men in our quest to restore the Nigerian project. I agree with them that the way to stop young people who are now embracing separatism is for us to work to bring about a Nigeria that is available to the aspirations of its diverse, heterogeneous society. I believe what they're doing is right, and that's why I have decided to walk away from the PDP, to join what these gentlemen are doing. You're right to say that they are working to save Nigeria. I also believe, without any doubt, that the path upon which President Buhari is toying, that there is no road there. I condemn President Buhari's ways, as you have seen me do severally on television. I pursued a revelation on television due to my work with several agencies across the world. Upon my return from Mali and Central African Republic, you saw how I shared on Channel Television the report of my investigations about the reasons for the ethnic cleansings in Kaduna State, ethnic cleansings in Katsina State, in Zamfara State, in Sokoto State, in Plateau State, and in Benue and Taraba States. I did not believe I was doing that job because I like those people. No. I was doing that job because I believe that an inclusive Nigeria will favor all of us. I agree that those people, those gentlemen are doing the right thing by working to atone, as you described it, for whatever it is. And I can tell you right now, Mazio Zilke, the Nigeria they fought to preserve is not the same Nigeria that President Buhari is trying to construct. President Buhari's Nigeria is a Nigeria that is available to only his people. And I can tell you, as I shared words with other people, President Buhari failed in his efforts to appropriate Nigeria for his people because his people didn't have the numbers to achieve his aim. I believe in a Nigeria that embraces the aspirations of our diverse population. A lot of the young people from where I come from are also involved in separatism. And I told them, I do not agree for that separatism. I believe in Nigeria that is bigger. I told them that I'm greedy. The reason I do not agree with separatism is because of my greed. I told them, why should I take a shot of brandy when I can actually own the entire carton? I believe that Nigeria will work for all of us. As you can see, I have lived in northern Nigeria for up to 40 years. I used to teach Hausa in England for a living. I speak several languages, and I love Nigeria. Why should I now embrace separatism? Yet, I do not blame the young people who are very angry about how we, the elderly, have allowed some to work to appropriate Nigeria for themselves. I believe in a Nigeria that is available for all. I believe in a Nigeria that protects the rights of the young, of the weak, and the vulnerable. I believe in a Nigeria where the young girls will be saved from pedophilia. I believe in a Nigeria where our young people must be allowed to practice that which they have learned in the universities. And I will continue to work with elders like General Danjuma, President Obasanjo, President Babangida, General Abdul Salami, and all who believe in Nigeria. I condemn in strong terms the ways of President Buhari. That's why I am with the Obasanjo doctrine, which says that President Obasanjo, worked against President Goodluck Jonathan in order to show the note inclusion. And that was why he worked for President Buhari. And after President Buhari, in order to show the East inclusion, in the words of President Obasanjo and Chief Ayo Adebanjo, you cannot force the Igbos to stay in Nigeria if you are not willing to allow them inclusion. Nigeria should be an enterprise available to all. I believe in that. That's why I support the Peter Obi presidency. I believe in a Nigeria that's available to all Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now, Doctor, before I let you go, yesterday during the town hall, many people, aside the stellar performance by His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi, many also considered that Kwankwaso did impress them, myself included. And since yesterday, many has questioned, and even this evening on this platform, many are still questioning. Now that you are an insider within the inner caucus of Labour Party and the presidential candidate, do you think that there is still a possibility of working together of the NMPP and the Labour Party? That means, do you think that there is the possibility of Kwankwaso ever working together with Peter Obi to deliver these 2023 election?
I believe so. What Labour Party is a new playground, as I said on my channel's television interview. At the very beginning, when we spoke to Kwankwaso, I personally was sent by Mr. Peter Obi to Mr. Kwankwaso. I went to Mr. Kwankwaso's home at Casina La Crescent in Maitama, and I had up to 3 hours of meeting with him. At that time, Mr. Kwankwaso, from all I learned, which I reported back when I returned, when Mr. Peter Obi asked me, what is it you and him came to? Mr. Kwankwaso was threatened by those who also threatened Governor Wike. Mr. Kwankwaso was not acting on his own. He was threatened never to work with Mr. Peter Obi, that he should not give Mr. Peter Obi advantage. And I learned that was simple, an arrangement to deny Mr. Peter Obi his right to run and be accepted by others from the north as somebody fit to be worked with. It was after that that President Obasanjo flew to Zaria, sat, and got all the northern groups to give him a candidate in this Rescue Nigeria project. The northern groups all came together and brought Mr. Dati Ahmed. That was when Mr. Kwankwaso now came back to say he wants to be. At that time, it was in the hands of President Obasanjo. And all those groups brought Mr. Dati Ahmed. Dati Ahmed was not chosen by Peter Obi. He was brought by a conglomeration of groups from the north. And President Obasanjo assured them that whoever they bring, will be. And that was how the Northern Elders Forum, the Arewa Consultative Assembly, and 4 other groups from the North came together and brought Mr. Dati Ahmed in this Nigerian project. And that was how he became. So I do not believe that we should discount Mr. Kwankwaso. Mr. Kwankwaso has a strong followership in the North for his work in trying to impact positively upon the lives of the poor while he was governor of Kano State. So we believe since he
Oh dear. I think Dr. Katch is frozen again, everybody. We are now on the last lap of this conversation. From the questions that we have written down here, we only have 2 more questions to throw at Dr. Katch Ononuju. It has been an interesting, I must tell you, a very, very interesting session this evening, where Dr. Katch Ononuju has been able to rail out and bring us into some of the things that are happening behind the scene. Mind blowing. Some revelations here that will be making headlines tomorrow, that it's already here. It is indeed very, very good to sit down and many of you watching us now to also watch and hear what Dr. Katch Ononuju is saying. I'm okay. Dr. Katch Ononuju is back again. So
yes, I'm back, sir.
yes. So you are making a very interesting point, and some consider that also as a revelation to that regarding the Ariwa House and that the Northern engagement. Now, I would have I had a question that that is written down that aligns with the statement you made, but I want to flip this question this way. The North, quote unquote, taxed all the presidential candidates to come to Kaduna in the Ariwa House to speak to them. And there was one language that many found slightly troubling, which is when you listen to the elders speak, they say, "We have invited you to come to the North to tell us what you will do for the North." Now, not what you will do for Nigeria, but what you will do for the North. And some Southerners are concerned that if you flip that key word and you get all the presidential candidates to gather somewhere in Lagos, Ibadan, or Enugu, or Bayelsa, Port Harcourt maybe, then you ask all the presidential candidates, can you tell us what you would do for the South? It may lead to something we saw last year, where the Northern Governors Forum have been meeting for donkey years, but for the first time in a very long time, the Southern governors met in Asaba and had a declaration. Suddenly, heaven was let loose. So I don't know if you see it that way, but do you think that because the North was able to get the presidential candidates to come to the North and tell them what they will do for the North, should the South, or rather the South, now a collective South, do the same and get these same people to come to the South and tell them what they will do for the South? Dr. Katch, are you there? Dr. Katch, are you there? Are you there? Dr. Katch?
There is nothing wrong with any group asking a candidate to say what
That video maybe before he comes back.
The way the thing is going, as of today, dollar is 8.40. You are seeing the thing going, yet you want to vote people who have no vision. You like what? The problem is not the devil, it's the last time. He said, oh, this one hand, not they give money. Is it money you want or change of people? Somebody give you money for election, it's for only 1 week. If you go, if not for that day. And what of the rest? They close your school for 8 months. How many months? And you want to bring them back? You lack what? It's not the devil. Even church people lack understanding. I don't belong to a party. I won't belong to any party. But I talk.
Okay, so you're back now.
Yes.
So go ahead with the answer.
There is nothing wrong with Northerners demanding what would you do for the North. When that happened, my principal explained to the North that yes, he sees the arable land in the North, good for agriculture, as the crude oil of the North. He explained that very well, and the Northerners were very impressed with what they had. There is nothing wrong with groups demanding from a candidate to know what such a candidate will do for them if the candidate emerges. This is also the particular group that were instrumental in working with President Obasanjo. So I believe if they had worked with him, they have every right to ask. Now you are engaging us. Now you are coming to us to ask for help. Now you are demanding that we work with you. What is in it for us? I see nothing wrong in such demands. And I do not think my principal did anything that is not normal when he explained what he would do for the North. A lot of the Northerners saw for the very first time somebody telling them that he will use what it is that the North have to help the North. What do they have? Vast arable land fit for productive agriculture.
Now, but again, I do understand there is nothing wrong with that. But do you, in your considered opinion, think that the South, collective South, could be in a position to do same?
Of course, every community has every right to demand from anybody who seeks their vote, what would you do for us after we have given you our vote? It's a legitimate question to ask. You demand something, what is the disbursement value for the things I give you? You come to my house, you want me to give you something, I have every right to ask you to state to my ears, to my hearing, a promissory statement that will tell me the displacement value that I will get for the things that you demand from me. I don't think that is totally out of place. I encourage every community to demand what the displacement value is for what every candidate demands from them.
Dr. Katch, that is a very fine place to anchor this evening conversation with you. It has been my pleasure.
Yes, okay. That is a very, very good thing for everybody to demand.
Thank you very much, Dr. Katch Ononuju. That is a very fine place to anchor this evening conversation with you. It has been my pleasure to have you here.
I'm always available to give you the truth. I do not why I spoke openly to you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Katch. Then,
I thank you very much for having me, Mazazoki.
thank you. I look forward to having you another day. People, it has been an hour and a half explosive conversation, the last 90 minutes with Dr. Katch Ononuju. Dr. Katch Ononuju is the chieftain of the Labour Party and also the special advisor to Mr. Peter Obi and on public affairs. People, do as much as you can to share, like, and subscribe to this platform. Share this stream, share this video to your friends, your family. The things that Catch has, said this evening are explosive enough to make headlines tomorrow morning. It's been indeed a wonderful time, and every single minute of it was worth it. Thank you once more. I am Mazezoke, and thank you for joining us this evening. And again, see you next time. Bye for now.